and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. As we go into 2019, one of the concerns for many soybean farmers is what's going to happen in terms of soybean cyst nematode and sudden death syndrome issues on the farm this year. We'll talk about how to prevent both of those problems from being big-time yield robbers.
Weed control on soybeans has been such a challenge. When you rotate to another crop like corn, you want to have 100% weed control. We'll talk about how to accomplish that with your pre-emerge herbicides in front of Roundup Ready corn.
Coming up later in our show today, we have an iron talk and a weed of the week as well. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
These days, it can be hard to make the math work in your soybean fields. With the Liberty Link system with Liberty herbicide, it gets easier. A 2+ bushel per acre advantage over As-Grow Roundup Ready to Extend soybeans means at least $18 more an acre for you. Plus, lower system input costs and more complete weed control all adds up to at least $33 more an acre for your farm. That's smart math. Grow smart with BASF.
Darren and I grew up on the farm drinking well water, so water quality...
That probably explains a lot, right?
No, hey, that explains why we are healthy and why we're doing well, and it also explains why, as farmers, we have to be very concerned about water quality. So today, during our Farm Basics time, we're going to talk a little about water quality, what you need to look for, and why farmers and how farmers are doing such a fantastic job making sure that we have nice weed control, we have good yields and all those types of things, but at the same time, we've got good clean water.
Well, water is the real key here. And when you think about farm families, where does their water supply come from? Right underneath their farm. Whether they're in our state or another state, chances are they probably have a well right on the farm. Now that's the same well that their livestock get water from, and that they use water through their sprayers and potentially irrigation if they have irrigation on their farm. They want that water supply to be good. They're heavily invested in it. In fact, living right on the farm, your health depends on it too.
Okay, there are two big things that we look at for water quality, and the two big issues that we have in the United States today are number 1, nitrate, number 2, phosphorus. And I really should move that number 2 now up to number 1. The phosphorus has become the much bigger water quality problem. How does phosphorus get into water? How does it get into a lake or a river or a stream? It gets in typically with soil erosion. Phosphorus doesn't move in soil, but what can happen is if the soil moves, well, then it carries phosphorus with it. So what I'm trying to say here is you're not going to find phosphorus leaching down, getting in tile lines or anything like that. That's not happening. Phosphorus is not typically getting in our groundwater, but it is getting into lakes, rivers, and streams because of soil erosion. So if as farmers we simply reduce soil erosion and we inject our phosphorus a little bit deeper than laying it on the soil surface, we have pretty much solved that problem.
Well, there are a lot of ways farmers are reducing phosphorus getting into the river. You look at riparian areas around streams and waterways, trying to catch anything that may be coming off the field. But I still look at rivers, and when you fly over rivers, you see exactly what I'm talking about here. Rivers are moving all the time. They're cutting into the riverbanks, and soil falls into the river. That has nothing to do with farmers, but it's going to happen naturally. So there's always going to be some level of phosphorus and soil moving into that river, whether it comes from a farm or not.
All right, let's talk about nitrogen. The leachable form of nitrogen is called nitrate. The drinking water standard in the United States is 10 parts per million of nitrate nitrogen. So as long as the level is below 10, you've got drinking water quality. By the way, in terms of what we as adults can handle for nitrate, it's way more than 10 parts per million. The only reason it's that low is because of babies, and it's even below the level that babies can handle. So just understand, 10 parts per million, that's real safe. Now, when I say that, I just want you to understand, hey, in almost all water, there's going to be a little bit of nitrate there. Don't get too worried about it. What you're going to find typically is 1 part per million, 3 parts per million, 8 parts per million, something like that. It's still within the drinking water tolerances.
Well, don't forget what's in the air that you're breathing every day. Most of it is nitrogen.
Yep.
So nitrogen's not the most dangerous nutrient out there that you're going to see, but it is one that we want to keep in check in our waters.
Yeah, absolutely. So what farmers are doing to reduce the amount of nitrate in the water is they're raising really good crops. We can also talk about tile, and people get concerned, oh, the nitrate's going to leach into the tile and that's going to go into the river. As farmers, the last thing we want to have happen is any nutrient that we had to spend money on get down into the water. So we don't see that around the country all that much. What farmers are doing is learning their soils better, applying nitrogen based on their soil type and soil texture, and then split applying the nitrogen. So by doing all these practices, we're finding less and less nitrate in the water all the time.
Water quality is super important to farmers for many, many reasons, but so is weed control. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
There are a lot of steps to having a perfect season. Don't let your fertilizer plan be the step that trips you up. No matter when you apply fertilizer, no matter how, AgroLiquid has the experts and the products that'll help you move closer to your target and hit the bullseye. AgroLiquid moves you closer to your target.
Leading the charge in strip tillage for more than a decade, the Soil Warrior brings the future to your farm today.
Tired of that old warped poly boom ruining your spray applications? Express Boom from Hypro is a fully assembled stainless steel boom that ensures an even application of chemicals every time. Don't wait another season, upgrade today. Hypro, helping you spray better.
At Estes Performance Concaves, we know how valuable your time is at harvest. That's why we designed the new XPR concave system. The XPR system is the #1 performance concave system on the market, surpassing the rest in both speed and efficiency, ensuring every last grain from your field gets into your tank. Plus, XPR concaves work for all row crops. No more changing concaves, meaning you have less downtime. Take back your bushels this harvest. Get Estes Performance Concaves in your combine today.
If you're looking to expand your farm's grain handling, you want everything to be fast and efficient. The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. That's fast enough to fill a semi in 6 minutes. Plus, our hood is designed to gently direct the flow of grain straight down, keeping your crop in condition. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales. Your planter is the single most important piece of equipment on your farm, because without a uniform stand, you can't reach maximum yield. That's why Harvest International set out to design a planter that takes advantage of the newest innovations in planter technology. Built tough for high speed and integrated with the latest precision enhancements, Harvest International planters ensure every seed you plant today puts more in your bin at harvest. Harvest International, planting the future.
Two of the worst problems you can have in soybeans are soybean cyst nematode and sudden death syndrome. Unfortunately, sometimes these two things get kind of tied together, so we're going to talk today about identifying them and stopping them, or at least reducing the problems with them on your farm.
First of all, soybean cyst nematode is just this huge, huge issue, and once you have cyst nematodes in your field, you're not getting rid of them. They're going to be there. So we've got lots of different products out there talking about, well, we kill nematodes. That's great, but your odds of killing every one in the field are pretty slim and none. So you have to manage soybean cyst nematodes. We do that with resistant soybeans. So that's a great feeling when you're planting a resistant bean, thinking, okay, I got it under control. Resistant doesn't mean there aren't going to be any nematodes out there. It means there's less nematodes, perhaps, that are infesting your root system. There's still going to be some that get in. Now, when they do, they open up that plant to disease, things like SDS that we're talking about today. So you have to keep those things in mind. We do have to manage nematodes, and then all the diseases and other problems that are going to come because of the nematodes are the secondary concern.
All right, Darren, let's talk just a little about identification. What's the difference between soybean cyst nematode and sudden death syndrome? What am I going to see on the plant post-emerge?
Well, they're going to look differently. With nematodes, a lot of times you're going to see nothing. other than in the fall when you're harvesting, well, you get less yield. That's what nematode looks like. Now, if it gets really, really bad, you'll see it start to brown around the outside edges of the leaves. You'll see whole plants die. Nematode problems look much different than SDS. SDS symptomology shows up once the plants start the reproductive phases. The infection happens very, very early in the season, and then the toxin moves up the plant once the plant has some stress. Now, what SDS looks like is very similar to brown stem rot. You're going to see what looks like your hand was on fire and you placed it on the leaf. So you'll see that kind of pattern at the beginning of sudden death syndrome when it's showing its foliar symptoms.
All right, Darren said a real key thing there. He said the infection starts early with sudden death, and I would go so far as to say, hey, with soybean cyst nematode, that's going to start really early in the season too. So because of all that, that's why seed treatments are getting pretty popular. If I look at Chloriva, for example, in soybeans, I can reduce cyst nematode. Now, does that have any impact on sudden death syndrome? No, but what we find is that plants that don't have cyst nematode are more likely to tolerate some sudden death syndrome, so in other words, not as likely to get the disease. Now, if you want to have a treatment that could go after both sudden death and soybean cyst nematode, that's where we'd probably talk about Elevo.
Well, Elevo is actually an SDHI fungicide, so it's interesting. You put an SDHI out there, but you get an impact on both. We're going after SDS primarily, but it does have an impact on soybean cyst nematode too. So yes, you're going to spend some money adding the Elevo, and I definitely would if I knew I had an SDS issue in my field. We normally see those SDS problems with early planted soybeans into wet soils, and especially where we've got compaction. So around field borders, around waterways, that kind of place. Yeah, if you're planting into that and you've had SDS in the past, I would definitely spend the money and protect myself.
When we think about sudden death syndrome too, what I would say is yes, we want to have that Elevo out there, but I'd probably throw Votivo with it as well, because commonly in the sudden death areas, we have cyst nematode, and I'd like even more impact on the cyst nematode. So I'm trying to get two different things out there, get a biological with the Votivo, and I'm going to have the Elevo, the chemical fungicide that has activity on both cyst nematode and SDS.
Now, I mentioned early on variety selection. You can certainly look for different soybean cyst nematode traits. Most of them have the same trait, but some have Peking, for example, which would be an alternative. Now, many of those Peking varieties have not yielded the best. They've been more defensive. But you know what? That's exactly what you're looking at if you have a heavy nematode problem. So pick the best Peking variety or the best PI 88788 variety. Either way, you've got some protection from the nematodes. With SDS, there are some great ratings now. There's been a lot of good trial work. There's been a lot of good trial work done over the last 10 years on SDS. So we're seeing some varieties significantly better in tolerance to SDS. Make sure you're talking to your seed provider before you plant those fields this year that you have a good SDS variety. That's going to be key.
Last thing I'll leave you with is we want to have all the best conditions besides having to worry about SDS and SCN. In other words, you want to have great drainage. Have your fertility program fantastic. Work on building soil organic matter, reducing compaction. Some people also will mention, hey, if I plant a little bit later with SDS, I see a little bit of reduction. Yeah, you might, but the problem is the later you plant, the less yield you're most likely going to have anyway. So we usually just suggest go plant on time, but plant the most tolerant varieties first, plant the fields where you've had the least amount of problem first, and save the worst ones for last.
Well, planting those soybeans early is generally a good theory for the highest yield potential, and it also gets you to crop canopy quicker to help hold out weeds like our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed later in the show.
Invisible, invasive, underestimated. Nematodes are stealing over 10% of yields, and current protection methods aren't enough. But a breakthrough seed treatment technology controls nematodes when they attack. Now offering NemaStrike technology. It provides broad spectrum control from the start and stays in the root zone as plants grow. Take back your bushels with NemaStrike technology. Strike where nematodes attack.
In 1949, Morton Buildings constructed our first machine storage building to establish our bond with the farming community. Since then, our relationship has grown, and so have our product offerings. From the smallest specialized operation to the largest agricultural enterprise, we understand the needs of your business and continue to evolve to meet industry demands. Plus, when you build a Morton building, you're backed by the strongest warranty in the business. To learn more about the Morton Advantage, visit mortonbuildings.com.
Why do I farm? It's just something I've always wanted to do. Something I've known since I was my daughter's age. I think about what kind of farm I'm going to hand over to her, about how I can make it more successful, more sustainable. I talk to other farmers, with agronomists and advisors to help me make better decisions, to figure out what's working for them and how to make it work even better for my farm. Because when you farm, you have a responsibility to keep it growing, to look at a freshly planted field, a newborn calf, even your bottom line. Then ask yourself, how do I help this grow? How can I make it even more productive? I ask myself these questions every day, because no matter what I'm doing, I'm still a farmer.
At Estes Performance Concaves, we know how valuable your time is at harvest. That's why we designed the new XPR concave system. The XPR system is the #1 performance concave system on the market, surpassing the rest in both speed and efficiency, ensuring every last grain from your field gets into your tank. Plus, XPR concaves work for all row crops. No more changing concaves, meaning you have less downtime. Take back your bushels this harvest. Get Estes Performance Concaves in your combine today.
Today we're going to talk a little about pre-emerge corn herbicides, especially in front of Roundup ready corn. The reason why there's a distinction here, next week we'll talk about conventional corn pre-emerge herbicides, but when we start thinking about Roundup ready corn, what's our #1 concern? It's broadleaf weeds. So today we'll focus more on the pre-emerge herbicides that are better on broadleaves.
Brian, I want to add something to what you just said. Yeah, we're concerned about broadleaf weeds in Roundup ready corn, but Roundup is simply the best rescue product we've ever had for grass control in corn. We just haven't had an option like this. It's so good. So we've been able for a number of years now to be able to cut back on the pre-emerge use rate because Roundup was going to clean everything up. Well, unfortunately now Roundup's not going to clean up the broadleaves. So we've got to focus on these pre's and getting the broadleaves under control. But thank goodness we have Roundup to clean up the escape grasses later on.
Okay, the best product pre-emerge that's going to get both grass and broadleaves, in my opinion, would be Verdict. But unfortunately it's high priced, which is why not a lot of people use it. What Verdict is its Outlook plus Sharpen. The Sharpen in there is the broadleaf component that is excellent on most broadleaves, not just for residual, but also has really good burn down. With Outlook and any of the Group 15s, so we're talking Dual, Surpass, Harness, Zidua, all those Group 15s, they're great on grass and just okay on broadleaves, and it's mainly the small-seeded broadleaves that they help with. With Sharpen, it's great on broadleaves, and I mean both the small-seeded broadleaves and some of the large-seeded broadleaves too. So it's a really nice complement having both those things together. Again, that's Verdict. 10 ounces is kind of the standard rate. You could bump that even more in corn.
Brian, I want to take a little exception to what you said about the Group 15s being grass herbicides and the other stuff being broadleaf herbicides. That's only because we've been cutting the rate on the Group 15s. When we use them at a full rate, like we're doing in conventional corn, we do get some small-seeded broadleaf control out of them, and it's not bad.
Yeah,
things
60
like
to 80%.
lamb's quarters and yeah, lamb's quarters, pigweeds, we're going to get 80 or 90% control out of those. Now I get it, 90% is not good enough in these heavy pressure situations, but don't sell them short. It's just that we've been cutting the rate back, that they haven't given us a little better control.
All right, 90%, I think Darren's pushing it. I'd say 60 to 80%, but still. The point is today we wanted to focus on some of the other things you can do besides the Group 15s. So one of the biggest ones is that whole HPPD family. And I realize there are a lot of products out there, so let me just talk kind of in general. Whether it's Balance Flexx or something that has Callisto, any HPPD that we're going to put down pre, that's going to have really good activity on broadleaves. Now, we have to be concerned about carryover in some areas of the country, so just be careful what you're doing on rate, and if you use it pre, don't use it again post.
Other products you may consider that are actually priced pretty well right now are Sure Start and Triple Flex. So again, here we've got that Group 15 base with a broadleaf component. In this case, it's Python and Stinger. So if you can handle Python and Stinger with your crop rotation, for not very many dollars, you can incorporate one of these two products into your program.
The number one thing we want to leave you with today is use a pre-emerge herbicide. Now, fortunately, if let's say your timing isn't just perfect and the corn gets out of the ground, you can use a lot of these pre's post-emerge. Now, you can't use verdict, you can't use balanced flexx, depending on which thing you're tank mixing with it and how big that corn is, but products like Sure Start and Triple Flex, there's absolutely no problem using those early post-emerge. But use a pre-emerge herbicide. We'd prefer to see you get it on before that corn comes up. What that's going to mean for you is you're going to have a weed-free field much earlier and hopefully well into that growing season. Then you can come with your post-emerge product. That's generally speaking the way to get the best yields.
One of those weeds that you definitely have to stop is our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to do it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, Agriculture Division of Dow DuPont. Finish the fight against tough weeds with the Enlist Weed Control System.
Weeds are tough, but we're tougher. With unrivaled weed control, reduced drift, and near zero volatility. So, who's tough now?
Our Weed of the Week is a tough perennial. It's field bindweed, or as some people call it, creeping Jenny.
Anytime we're talking about a perennial weed, we're concerned about what kind of reproductive system it has. Now this one, it has rhizomes, and rhizomes are probably the worst. If you said, oh, it only went to seed, okay, well, we can stop weeds from going to seed, but rhizomes are tough. They're underneath the ground. And you've probably heard us say it on the show before. The number one thing I would say with this particular weed is don't do tillage. Once you do tillage, you've cut that root system up, and instead of one plant, you're gonna have 50 plants. And that makes it that much more difficult to get.
All right, here's the other thing that's kind of a challenge. With a lot of these vining weeds that are in that same kind of family as field bindweed, Roundup is just not the best. So yes, Roundup can have some activity on it, and right away when you think perennial weed, you go, boy, I need something systemic, I want to use Roundup. Okay, if you want to try that, go ahead, but make sure you're using the highest labeled rate on Roundup.
In terms of weed identification, it often gets misidentified as wild buckwheat. All you have to do is pull the plant up and you'll see very quickly. Wild buckwheat has a simple taproot system, and if you start seeing those roots going sideways, you know you have rhizomes and you know it's field bindweed.
Yeah, wild buckwheat is simply an annual. This is a perennial weed.
All right, so Brian kind of hinted at the real key here. Get it before it starts vining out. Get it early in the season. If you're going to do a burn down, Roundup's not the best at it, so you may have to add something in. In front of Extend soybeans, we've got a great option. You could add dicamba into the burn down. That's my favorite product in front of soybeans to use. But you can't do that if you don't have Extend soybeans. And many people get tempted to use 2,4-D. Please don't. You can see some injury on those soybeans if you're doing it relatively close to planting. If you're going to use 2,4-D, you're going to have to be out there a month or two in advance, or do it the fall before.
Yeah, so 2,4-D and dicamba work if that fits for you, so that certainly can be done out in pastures as well if you want to, but that's basically going to burn down the top growth, so don't expect long-term control out of either one of those.
Let's talk about control then, Brian. Where do you actually start to get really good control?
Okay, a lot of people have been using Grazon, so they have the 2,4-D burning the top growth down and the Toradon getting into the root system. I think Toradon has pretty decent activity. I've actually had people using Stinger, Hornet, that type of product. So when I think about that in pastures, I go, hey, in corn I've got Hornet, in Sure Start or Triple Flex. Start that way, then follow with Status post-emerge. In soybeans, I'm still going to run the 3 pre-program. I really need you to follow with Roundup or Extend beans would be my preference. Liberty's not too bad on this either, but it'll just burn the top growth down. In wheat, I'd use Sharpen pre, and then Wide Match is probably just a little bit better than Husky post.
That's all the time we have for this week's weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Your planter is the single most important piece of equipment on your farm, because without a uniform stand, you can't reach maximum yield. That's why Harvest International set out to design a planter that takes advantage of the newest innovations in planter technology. Built tough for high speed and integrated with the latest precision enhancements, Harvest International planters ensure every seed you plant today puts more in your bin at harvest. Harvest International, planting the future.
There are a lot of steps to having a perfect season. Don't let your fertilizer plan be the step that trips you up. No matter when you apply fertilizer, no matter how, AgroLiquid has the experts and the products that'll help you move closer to your target and hit the bullseye. AgroLiquid moves you closer to your target.
In 1949, Morton Buildings constructed our first machine storage building to establish our bond with the farming community. Since then, our relationship has grown, and so have our product offerings. From the smallest specialized operation to the largest agricultural enterprise, we understand the needs of your business and continue to evolve to meet industry demands. Plus, when you build a Morton building, you're backed by the strongest warranty in the business. To learn more about the Morton Advantage, visit mortonbuildings.com.
Do you feel like there's never enough time to get everything done before planting? The window for spring work is quick and unforgiving. Give yourself the upper hand with the ProTill High Performance High Speed Disc. More and more farmers agree the ProTill is the right tool for springfield conditions and heavy residue management. Zero maintenance bearings, independent disc technology, oversized pins and bushings allow the ProTill to handle whatever field or conditions you can throw at it. Degelman High Performance Equipment.
The Quick Belt from Norwood Sales is your all-around grain handling solution. Our conveyor-based system uses an 18-inch belt and a 10-inch tube, which minimizes seed damage while moving more than 10,000 bushels an hour. Keep your grain and your farm moving with the Quick Belt from Norwood Sales.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
There are 6,272,640 square inches in an acre. We counted. Why? Because we designed the TigerMate 255 field cultivator and 2000 series early riser planter to maximize every single one. So when you create the most level seedbed in the industry and target a nickel-size area to plant a seed and never miss, you'll know in high-efficiency farming, there's one name to count on, Case IH. Rethink productivity. Learn more at caseih.com/everyinch.
If you're looking for ways to increase yield and profitability, chances are you may be looking for a way to add another liquid product at some point in the planting process this spring. Especially when a lot of the areas around the country did not get things done in the fall, you may be tempted to mix several things together. It could be a risky proposition, so we've got a solution for you in today's Iron Talk. Here's how planting season goes on our farm. I like to use the liquid fertilizer mix in furrow. However, our research over many years has shown a positive return on investment adding insecticide, fungicide, a couple different biologicals, and PGRs. Well, that's a lot of stuff, and you just can't mix all that together. There can be some antagonism where a fungicide may kill off some of the biologicals, or a mixing problem where the entire solution turns to gunk. Plus, many of these products even require precise or minute rates. While there are a number of different equipment solutions to this dilemma, dosatrons are used widely across agriculture as they're very simple to operate and inexpensive to add to your planting setup. They don't require fancy electronics or a complicated wiring system either. Dosatrons work by putting a desired percentage of a product, such as xanthion fungicide, into the flow of a product, in this case starter fertilizer. So, as 5 gallons of starter fertilizer flows through the lines, the dosatron can add other products accurately to the solution. We have a setup that can apply a product anywhere from 0.2% to 2% of the total solution, but there are dosatrons that can do up to 10%, depending on the product that you're trying to add. For the tank, the dosatron, and the connectors, we spent about $800. It's simple to use and an inexpensive addition to your planter setup. If you're adding quite a bit to your in-furrow program like we are, a dosatron may be something you consider adding to your farm. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
We hope you've enjoyed our show today. If you're looking for more agronomic information, we'd invite you to call into the Ag PhD radio show. We take your live phone calls each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Sirius XM Channel 147.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.